Hey, what's up, all of you beautiful subscribers? Welcome back to the Jack Chapple Show, where we talk about business, stock market, and a little bit of tech news, too, a lot recently. Now, I've been trying not to lead off the show with any Amazon topics, but this one's just too hilarious and weird and for me not to lead off with. So let's just play you this little clip of this video here, and I'll explain what it is.
Once installed, it's no problem if you're not at home. With Amazon Key, you can get your packages delivered just inside your door. You can track your delivery with real-time notifications, watch the delivery happening live, or review a video of the delivery after it's complete.
Okay, so this is Amazon's new thing called Amazon Key. And so this is something I talked about a few months ago. It was just an idea that they put out, and now they're actually going to try and implement it for the first time, and I'm interested to see what happens here. But pretty much, if you're listening in podcast form, what this video is when you order something on Amazon now, the Amazon delivery person can now open up your door and drop the package off just inside your door, so the package is safe. I think that's the word that they want to use here, so that they can just, drop it off inside your house. I like this idea. Okay, I like the idea. However, would I want to have someone have a key to my house, a delivery person who's probably, making minimum wage? Would I want them to have a key to my house? No. Under all circumstances, no. However, I do like this idea, though. Okay, See, when this idea came out a few months ago, I was curious as to how they were going to implement it, which, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to send them a key to your house, and they're going to duplicate it and then send the key back to you? How is that going to work, right? But no, you actually have to buy an electronic key hub from Amazon, and then you can either install it yourself or you can have someone install it for you from Amazon here. And so if it was just like that, I would be very sketched out, and that's all it was. You just give them a key and they deliver it. The fact that they give you a video camera to set up too that watches your front door, that makes me a little bit more comfortable. So if someone, were to go in and steal something from your house, a Amazon person were to steal something, at least you can hold them accountable, I guess, in some sort of way. However, this person, you really must trust Amazon, because what if this person just wants access to your house and goes home and, keeps the key to your house? How are they going to do that? They could break in and, be violent and all of that, right? And so I see both aspects to this. It's a cool idea. So the other side of this, what kind of difference would this make? Well, if you live in, a middle class, slightly upper class, or slightly lower class neighborhood, packages can get stolen by, young kids, or even upper class neighborhoods that get stolen by, young kids, or even all classes, get stolen by, people low income, just driving around looking for packages on people's doorsteps that Amazon hasn't been able to put inside or protect properly. And so, it happens sometimes. Now, for me personally, and that would really help with that, having the Amazon packages not being stolen. And it would also help with, my dad. He buys stuff on Amazon, gets it delivered all the time in Oakville, which is a very upper class neighborhood. And but he's fully paralyzed, right? He can essentially, all he can really do is click a mouse and kind of move his legs in a wheelchair, so he has some mobility around the house. But he can't go out and answer the door. Obviously, he can't walk downstairs. He can't walk, period, right? So this would help with ensuring that, I don't know, that the package isn't damaged and, gets inside if it's rainy or windy, or if there's a bunch of snow. Ensuring that the package stays inside versus, having to wait for someone like my sister to come home at 8 o'clock at night or something like that. That's a very anecdotal scenario, but I'm really curious as to, what do you guys think of this? Because I get it, but I don't think I would do that. I do not have enough trust in the Amazon Key people to let someone have a key to my house and let them in my home. So it's really funny that the lead person that they put on this was a fairly attractive, female, kind of not intimidating, not someone that would come in with a knife and just kill you kind of deal. That's who they think is delivering your packages, which is, that's a little bit funny. And obviously the person who's installing this in your house is also a not intimidating female. This is all a little bit funny here. I understand what they were doing. They didn't want any big gross neck beard guy I have a key to your home now. So what do you guys think of this scenario? Let me know in the comments down below. Would you get this? You know, I understand it. You don't want your packages stolen. This would help. I do like that you get to see them dropping off your package. I get all that. It's interesting. I'm not going to be one of the first people to implement this. If it's successful, if the rate of nothing bad happening is, 99.99999% bad stuff not happening, then sure, I'll probably look into getting this. But for at least the time being, next few years, there's no chance. No chance at all. So let's move on to the next topic here. We have a lot of stuff I want to cover today, especially some stock market winners and losers. But I want to talk about Airbnb. This is important for IPOs and you looking to start tech companies and all that. Airbnb CEO isn't rushing into an IPO. He was told that Warren Buffett told me to get rich slowly here. And this is, I really, really like this because Airbnb, they started as a company just like, let's see, probably 2008, 2009. They started somewhere around there. They got really big, or they started getting customers around Obama's, what was it, inauguration or something like that. That's when they started to get big because people wanted to stay to see the inauguration. So people were renting out their houses and making money and all that. So that was actually a really cool story. You should go check that out on How I Built This. And it's a podcast and it's like 30 or 40 minutes about how Airbnb was built. And, one of the co-founders, essentially said like, look, we funded the company with credit cards and by selling cereal. And getting into Y Combinator because they liked that we could sell cereal. It was a really weird story. But they're not rushing into becoming an IPO because they just got to profitability like this year or last year sometime, second quarter of 2016. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with IPOing. Like, is your infrastructure set up? Are you done with all the are you prepared for all the stuff that comes with being a public company? Having extreme volatility, having to, do annual reports, having to have, specific board of directors, having to, all the stuff that I've talked about before. And this guy says, no, like, look, we could be a public company right now. We probably could have been one last year. Essentially, that's what he's saying. But he wants to wait a little bit until the company is a little bit more stable and settled down and making sure it could handle this IPO. And so why do the co-founders want an IPO, by the way? Excuse me. Is because they just want to cash out for the people that invested in them. They themselves, they could keep this private and sell their private shares and be absolutely fine. This is a way for all of the investors that have invested in Airbnb to cash out, and that's what they want to do. But they're not going to do it right now. And that's something really interesting. I like seeing that because a lot of companies just rush to IPO, to get that big influx of cash to pay off the people that have invested in them early on. It's glad to see that this company is not doing that. Because think about it. There's been a trend of this recently. Like Uber, big company, hasn't IPO'd. Lyft, big company, hasn't IPO'd. I think Reddit's probably pretty big too. I don't think that's IPO'd. I think it might have sold to some other company. Yeah, no, it's still private though. This Airbnb's $31 billion valuation hasn't gone public, right? There's tons of examples like this. A company that my girlfriend works at, Vidyard, right? They're probably worth hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe $1 billion, who knows? Probably in the hundreds of millions somewhere. Again, they're not even thinking about an IPO right now. We're becoming a non-IPO tech sector at this current second here. So it's interesting to see that. Let's move on to the next topic here. Let's talk about this $214 grilled cheese. Yep, we're going to do that. $214 grilled cheese that I saw. And why is it $240? Well, it's plated with real gold flakes. And so if you're listening in podcast form, this grilled cheese actually looks like it's like pure gold, except it's just coated with it. Looks like something Trump would eat, right? Right? Trump really likes gold too, right? Doesn't he like to coat all of his penthouse suites in gold? And I don't like gold. It's too. My grandparents' house, they were they obviously they weren't super wealthy or anything, but they were fairly middle class entrepreneurs that they retired and. Their house is now worth, $700,000 kind of deal, $800,000, maybe $1 million, who knows, but it's a very small house. It's just where they bought it 50 years ago ended up becoming like a hub or a suburb of Toronto. But when they bought it, it was essentially like a rural area. But yeah, so, you know, my grandparents, their house was like very gold looking, I guess, throughout, gold and red looking, even though there's no gold in it. So I think gold's kind of ruined for me. I have no interest in gold whatsoever. I like kind of the marble look, the modern marble, maybe black and white kind of look. But, I mean, this grilled cheese here, I mean, $214. I've seen this with, there's gold ice cream too that's come out too. I think it was like $150. I think I talked about that with you guys in the video, but what is this? 23 karat gold here. So weird, guys. I mean, this would be something you'd want to try on your birthday or something, right? But guess what? At the end of the day, it's a grilled cheese. At the end of the day, it's going to taste like a grilled cheese. It's not going to taste like the best grilled cheese you ever had. It's going to taste like grilled cheese. And people are also thinking, this is my science background, you know, how are you able to eat gold? Well, you can eat gold. Like you can, as long as it's not in super high quantities, you'll be fine, because gold doesn't react with anything. You do not digest gold. It just goes in, goes out. I mean, you're not going to get gold poisoning from eating this, from eating gold flakes. Oh, that should be a cereal, gold flakes. That's like Trump cereal. Gold flakes. I can picture him eating that, right? Only the best gold. All right, let's move on. Steve Wozniak says there's way too much hype around Elon Musk's Tesla. And I mean, I understand his perspective, because his reasoning behind this was why there's too much hype is because reasoning was that he's missed every single deadline that he's ever said. I mean, Tesla's missed every single deadline. Sure, they've hit some numbers, they've hit some delivery numbers sometimes, but for the most part, you know, Tesla's kind of behind on everything that they've predicted, you know, self-driving automated cars, all that. And so that's what Wozniak was talking about here. He's not ripping on Musk. He's just saying that he's not punctual. That's all he's saying here. Beep, email. Okay. I need to turn off the email. I need to make sure I quit my email when I do these podcasts, videos. It always seems to go off at least once. Oh boy. But yeah, one of the things about Tesla is that, I mean, I stopped talking about the Tesla stock because it just defied logic. If the company would do something terrible, the stock would go up, and if they did something good, the stock would go up. It just kept going, and it's weird. Tesla stock, and they laid off a bunch of workers, and the stock went up. It's just a really weird scenario. And by the way, I don't think I'm going to talk about this, but just wanted to mention that Solar City, who's also partially owned by Elon Musk, they laid off 300 workers just out of the blue. And meanwhile, a few months ago, they said that they would be increasing the workforce by a few hundred. They're laying off a few hundred people. So I needed to talk about that today too. Just a quick. I'm not going to go on that too much more. But what do you guys think of Elon Musk and Tesla? Elon Musk, great visionary. I like that he's actually an engineer and actually codes for the company. He's not like Steve Jobs, who, you know, coded for like 2 months and then he's viewed as this genius for just yelling at people. I mean, I go on these Steve Jobs rants because everyone looks up to Steve Jobs, and yes, he had some of the greatest ideas ever. Like the iPod, his idea, great idea. iPhone, his idea, great idea, right? Those revolutionized, those are two of the biggest tech products of all time, but he didn't build them. He didn't code them, right? At the end of the day, someone else still has to figure out how to do it. And I always give Steve Wozniak more props than Steve Jobs, because guess what? Steve Wozniak had to build the Apple computer. He built the Apple II. He helped build the Macintosh a little bit. Like that was him. That was not Steve Jobs spending 16 hours a day coding. That was Steve Jobs yelling at people to code. At the end of the day. Now, obviously, Steve Jobs was a really good salesperson, one of the best marketers of all time. But in terms of being a tech genius, I mean, that's more of Wozniak. I mean, essentially, Wozniak built his own computer from scratch without any instructions or anything. He's just like, you know what? I'm just going to try and build a homemade computer, and he did it. And the fact that you are able to have you're able to type stuff on a screen, that's because of Steve Wozniak. That's not Steve Jobs, okay? So I think that's a little bit of my rant there. I love Steve Wozniak, and I love Steve Jobs too. I mean, they're both great, but when you think of Steve Jobs, you should think of branding and marketing. And when we think of tech, think of Wozniak. I like to separate those two. Let's move on here to Boeing. Okay, so Boeing released their earnings. So if I were to tell you that they had an expected earnings per share of $2.66 per share, and they beat it, by having an earnings per share of $2.72. So they beat their earnings estimate by a few percentage points, and they beat their revenue estimates by a few percentage points too. You would probably assume that the stock would go up. That's not how the stock market works a lot of the times. They had a really good earnings announcement today, but the stock has gone down 3%. Because why not? Because actually the reasoning behind this, which is BS, saying that in two of their business branches, which is commercial airplanes and defense airplanes and security units, revenue was down by those by 1% and 5%. So stupid, right? Stupid. Overall, everything went up and the stock went down. So again, this is the opposite of Tesla. Weird situation. Okay, let's move on here to just a fun story as we're talking about airplanes here. So this woman was actually the only passenger on a jet. On a jet that holds usually 222 people, usually has 189 passengers. She was the only woman on it because she was flying from Glasgow to a Greek island of, by the way, my family's from Greece, a Greek island called, was it Crete? I don't know, what was this island called here? I can't find it here. It's probably staring at me right on screen here. To Crete, I don't know how to pronounce it. A Greek island, and she was the only one there because it's the last flight during holiday season, I guess. Usually there's a big downturn in passengers. Maybe it's cut in half. Maybe instead of 189, it's 90. But she was the only one, and they had a bunch of cancellations last minute, and she was the only one on the flight. And sometimes I wish that happened to me. Now, she got full VIP service. Obviously, the flight attendants kind of chilled with her. She got to know the pilots pretty well. And I mean, this is a dream scenario. I mean, this is kind of why I want a private jet sometimes. It's like you don't have to share any leg space, but still, this is obviously very inefficient. I wouldn't want a 189 passenger jet and be the only person on it. But like, this is kind of just a funny and cool story. Hopefully that'll help lighten the mood of this podcast video here. Yeah, just a cool story here. And yeah, she's actually an author too. So she's actually flying to this Greek island to go away for a week and write this crime novel that she's working on here. You know, hopefully it goes well. I wish all the best for everyone involved. Let's move on to Sears. Sears is bringing back its iconic holiday catalog, and no one's going to read it. Poor Sears. So they're going to bring back this 120-page gift guide, which I actually looked at. My grandma had a bunch from like the 60s and 70s and 80s. My one that is passed on, not my grandparents that are still alive. But yeah, she kept it, and I looked at it. It was really cool. She might have had, I think my grandpa had one from even before that. I think it might have even been from the 50s, which is really cool. And yeah, they're bringing the catalog back, and they're going to put it online. And because the company's going broke and millennials don't know what Sears is, and the fact that, like, my brother is 10 years younger than me, so he is 13 years old. 13, yeah, just turned 13. He's never been in a Sears. He's never been in a lot of the big giant places I used to go to as a kid. Used to go to Sears. We had this place in Canada called Zellers. We had Target here for a few years. He's never been to any of those. He doesn't even really know. He doesn't know what Zellers is. He doesn't. And these were these giant brands that we had when we were kids. Sears and Zellers and you know, Target in Canada here, but they're all gone now. And so I applaud Sears for at least trying to do something a little bit nostalgic and cool that millennials might like. But at the end of the day here, it's not going to make a difference to their bottom line. It's just a marketing ploy so that they can get people like me to read this headline. That's all it is. Yeah. Anyways, we got to move on here. But let's take a look at this. Actually, funny enough, the Sears stock after they announced this tanked 5%. And they also announced that they've cut ties with Whirlpool, by the way. I used to buy Whirlpool. I think that my family had a Whirlpool product. I think we might have a few, maybe a washer or a dryer back at our old house. But yeah, so stock down 4.67% after this announcement. Kind of funny. Let's move on to, oh yeah, this was a big story I should have led off with, by the way. I was thinking about it, but the Amazon was just too hilarious. I want to talk about Saudi Aramco because I mentioned this months ago. Saudi Aramco is probably the biggest company in the world that people don't know about. People think it's Apple. No. Apple's the biggest public company in the world. Saudi Aramco might be the biggest private one in the world. Okay? So Saudi Aramco is essentially the oil company that owns Saudi Arabia. That's what it is. It was some ridiculous number, like 30 or 40% of the population there either has some sort of indirect work ties to this one company, is either, works for them, or their company does business with them, or essentially it's all tied in here. Now, everyone obviously uses the oil in some sort of way and probably uses it for energy and all that. But it's just, a ridiculous proportion of the country actually works for this company here. And so I remember saying that the company is probably worth over $1 trillion, a few months ago. Might even be worth up to $5 trillion. And there is a legitimate estimate here that it's worth $2 billion. $2 billion. So where does this number come from here? It's because they have an estimated 266 billion barrels in oil reserves with a valuation of $7 to $8 per barrel, plus with a bunch of other stuff too. It would come out to roughly $2 trillion. Roughly $2 trillion. Might even be more, might be a little less. But just with their oil reserve assets alone, we're talking 1.7 trillion maybe valuation here, if that's all true. So we could see the biggest company in the world going public. We could be seeing that now. What this article actually goes on with here is, like, this article says buying the Saudi Aramco IPO, which is going to happen next year, by the way. So why I want to talk about this is they want to IPO next year. It would be like buying Blockbuster in the age of Netflix. And it's interesting because people thought, that oil would have gone away by 2020. I remember this prediction from The Inconvenient Truth. We're going to run out of oil 2025 or 2030, and the Earth's going to be on fire. We're going to see New York underwater and Florida underwater and all that stuff. There's a bunch of predictions that movie made that were all wrong, right? But what I wanted to mention here is just, it's because we are transitioning to an age where we're trying to have cleaner energy. We are trying to transition. I mean, there's countries, it seems like every month or two, there's a major developed country saying we're going to try to aim for 100% renewable energy by 2035 or something like that. I mean, we're trying to transition. The popularity of Tesla's taken off, and Chevy Volt and Volvo going all electric. I mean, all the use for oil is going down. It's going down and down and down. And that's what this article is just trying to say here, is that, like, look, why would you buy this? You should only be buying this IPO if you do it for the short term, but for the long term, probably don't bet on oil. If you're looking to buy this company for the next 10 years, probably don't buy it. That's what this article is talking about here. So what do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of Saudi Aramco? I'm interested in seeing what you guys, hearing what you guys have to say. Seeing what you guys have to hear. That's what I was going to say. Okay, so let's talk about this Uber credit card. I have a few more stories, about 2 or 3 more stories, then I'll talk about some stock market winners and losers. So Uber has a new credit card. They're launching a credit card, and it's just kind of a normal credit card, except I just want to talk about their perks. Let's just skip through all this here. They're going to launch a credit card. They're going to say, hey, well, on their app, it's 65 million people are active riders. Get our credit card here, and you can get some perks. So some of the perks here are the new Uber Visa has no annual fee and offers $100 bonus after spending $500 in the first 90 days. So you essentially get, a sign-up bonus of $100 plus no annual fee. Like, that's actually decent for a starter credit card. If you are a millennial and are just looking for a cheap credit card and you're good with credit, this actually is not a bad deal. I mean, no annual fee, that's pretty big. I mean, mine has an annual fee, I think, right now. What kind of card do I have right now? I don't know. They offered me a platinum. I remember talking to you guys about this. They offered me a freaking platinum card. I was Visa, or their black card or something like that. And they're offering me, I was really surprised because, the year before I could only get, or a year and a half before that, I could only get, the basic zero annual fee card, and then they offered me the black. I didn't take the black card because it just wasn't worth it for me. I don't spend enough money with my credit card for it to be worth it in the long run. I think the monthly fee was like over $100 or something. It was something really stupid. I forget what the fee was, but and now it did come with a lot of points, but essentially I had to be spending over 10 grand a month or 12 grand a month on this card for it to be worth it. So I didn't get it. But I mean, if you're just starting out and want to get your first credit card, just get a no annual fee card. Get a high limit as you can, and make sure you just pay it off on time. And seriously, this Uber card, it looks good. You essentially get $100 cash back if you spend $500, which if you're above the age of 20, that's going to happen for you. Or if you pay rent or essentially if you're above the age of 20 or you graduated university, you're going to spend more than $500 in 90 days on your credit card. That's just the way it happens. That's the way it is. I mean, I spend, thousands and thousands a month on my credit card. But not obviously nowhere near like 12 grand. But anyways, I think it's kind of cool. I like what they're doing here. I like the no annual fee. They're kind of looking for other ways to produce income. And you got some other perks too if you get this card. So includes 4% back on restaurants, takeout, and bars, including Uber Eats. That's really cool. 4% back on I mean, that could, if you eat out a lot, if you're a millennial and you use Uber, odds are you eat out a lot. That's just kind of what happens. 3% back on airfare and hotels. That's really cool too. 2% back on online purchases. Ooh, that's interesting. Including video and music streaming service. You know what? They got some good perks here. This is a strong card, guys. This is a really, really strong card. Not going to lie here. If you're just starting out and you want a card, this is not bad. Not bad at all. So, in addition, there's no foreign transaction fees. Wow. Okay. The annual interest rate ranges from 16% to... Okay, so the interest rate, if you get behind on your payments, could be 25%. So that could be bad. Because Visa's, I think, is somewhere around 18%, so this could be 25%. But the perks that come along with this, not bad. Now, where the drawback is here, secret drawback is that companies like Visa, they have point systems. They have point systems and reward systems. So, for example, I spent enough on my credit card in the first 3 months of this year, so from January to March, where I don't know, I was able to pay off like in points, in rewards points, I was able to pay off like $200 or something worth of, maybe even more than that, $200 worth of my credit card balance or whatever for that month. And so in 3 months, I got $200 in rewards. And I'm guessing that Uber's not going to have a rewards or point system. They're just going to put that towards these perks, getting, cash back and stuff with restaurants and all that, which is a good idea to attract millennials. Because, I mean, like, point systems, kind of boring, right? Probably better economically. Probably better economically for millennials just to go with a normal credit card, but it's cool. These have some perks that normal credit card companies don't have. So I'll be looking into that. Wow, I gotta stop doing the noise. That's something my grandma used to do all the time. That's probably why I do it. Okay, 2 more things, then stock market winners and losers. Let's just pound through this here. Trump administration to test expanded drone use. Expanded drone use. Oh, I like this headline here, but Trump. So what do you guys think about drones, by the way? What if it's used for defenses and security purposes and war purposes? Sure, I'm okay with that. Is it kind of like, I'm one of those people where, I don't really mind if there's drones just, navigating the streets all the time to make sure they catch all the criminals or something, make sure there's cameras everywhere. Like, I don't know, at the end of the day, like, I'm kind of okay with that unless it goes too far. Like, that's the other drawback to that too. Like, if you accidentally, drop a whatever wrapper for a McDonald's burger on the street and a camera catches it and you get a ticket for like whatever, $50 for vandalism or whatever. Like that's going to suck if it goes too far, or, if you just have a dispute with your friend or something and you both push each other, you're both going to go to jail for assault. Like, there's weird gray areas for that, right? But I'm okay with drones. And here's the deal, is that the reason why Amazon isn't delivering with drones right now is because it's not really because of tech purposes. It's because of regulations. you're not allowed to fly drones over people or into apartment buildings or onto balconies, or you're not allowed to fly drones anywhere. And so this is part of this Trump administration program, is so that they can ease back on stuff like that, so that maybe one day Amazon can deliver with drones. I mean, remember, Amazon made that video 3 years ago that they had essentially drones that were becoming ready to deliver packages, and then all of a sudden they got hit with a bunch of regulation slaps and saying, look, you can't fly drones over highways. And that's understandable. It's understandable. And it's just, I'm interested. I'm pro drones for business. I'm kind of neutral on them for like security purposes. And I'm kind of for it for like war-ish purposes. Obviously, drone strikes, I don't want to get into that, right? Because drone strikes are, you know, like, you know, those stories about how Obama issued a bunch of drone strikes, and, you know, you have to weigh decisions of like, okay, if we do a drone strike here, there's, you know, 70% of the people that are going to get killed are going to be innocent people, and 30% are going to be the leaders of ISIS, right? Like, they've had to make decisions like that. And so that's really unfortunate. I'm not for that. It's kind of messed up. But, I mean, it happens. That happens in government. People don't know about that. People don't talk about that. All the drone strikes that happen and all the innocent people that get killed, because it's, I don't know, it's just not popular to talk about. So anyways, let's move on to the last topic here. Amazon, it's just a stupid story here. So I looked at this title here. Amazon charts are troubling ahead of earnings. And so if you were to read that, you'd be like, oh, what is this? Amazon's going to have bad earnings. Amazon's going to have bad revenue. All their charts are bad. All their expenses are going to be high. No, this is literally an article that talks about how people are trading the Amazon stock right now, and saying that how people are trading the stock right now is going to dictate their earnings tomorrow, or whenever they release it, tomorrow, I think, which is, I mean, it's ridiculous. This is essentially a day trading article, so we're not even going to cover that. Let's talk about some stock market winners and losers quickly. Akamai Technologies. They are one of the big winners today, up 5%. I think that they had good earnings today. Chipotle down 14%. Bad earnings. Some more health scares. Oh, man. Look at that. Look at this. They have gone down 44% this year, Chipotle. And since 2015, they're down 62%. Wow. Just not a good time for Chipotle. Let's see if they can turn it around here. Let's see. Let's move on to AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. All the Wall Street Bets guys like to talk about this stock a lot. Down 11% today because here's actually interesting. AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, actually beat on earnings and revenue. They just released them, except in their earnings report call, they said that the next quarter is probably going to be rough for revenue, probably down 10 or 15%. I didn't go into the reasons, but that's why the stock dropped off the face of the earth today. One of the biggest losers today. How have they been this year? Actually, let's take a look. So they've been up. They're up 66%. Wow, they're actually one of the biggest gainers this year. But since January, they're up 11% ish. Is that right? 10%. Okay. All right. So they're a big winner this year, but really big loser today. Nike up 3.87% because they announced that they are going to try to transition their business strategy a little bit here. So they're going to try and sell more to developing markets overseas, people that are, you know, just starting to become wealthy countries. Actually, I know that this is different, but they're already wealthy. But I was watching this video about Dubai recently, and how the population of Dubai in like 1900 was like a few thousand people, and in 1960 or 70 it was like 10,000 people, and today it's like 2 million. And it's essentially actually all happened in the past 25 years. Actually, I should show you a picture of Dubai before and after here. Dubai before, after, because it is quite amazing about what it looks like before and after here. So Dubai in 1991 had essentially 4 or 5 apartment buildings. Now it's, you know, essentially a strip of just awesomeness with a bunch of suburbs around it. Yeah, and before it was just a few buildings with essentially not even farmland, just desert around it. It's just kind of crazy how that happens here. The Dubai River here. But yeah, Like there's a bunch of places like this that are happening around the world right now. I mean, China's coming out of communism right now. They've been doing that for 40 years. They're still growing. I'm sure India's growing. A lot of the developing countries are growing into more developed countries. And so Nike's like, well, you know what? Let's just go attack it. Let's just go try to sell to them first, because now they can afford Nikes, and we can just sell directly to them instead of them getting hand-me-downs of hand-me-downs of hand-me-downs. And it's kind of a cool strategy. So Nike was up 3% after announcing that today. Another big loser, Alaska Air, down 10%. They are a airplane company, and they just missed earnings. So actually, just quick thing, I'm not even going to talk about this. Google and Cisco announced hybrid cloud partnership. So Google, in terms of the cloud space, Microsoft owns like 15% market share or something around there. Google owns about 5%. So Cisco's partnering with Google so that Google could take more of that. Google currently owns about 5% of the cloud market share, and they want to get into that more. And so does Cisco, obviously. So they're going to create this hybrid partnership here. But my voice is getting sore, so I think we're going to wrap this video up. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You can check out my stock market program or my wealth accelerator in the link down below. And I think that's going to wrap this video up. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people, and I'll see you guys in the next video.